So welcome everyone to our event, Tomorrow's Women, Empowering Young Israeli, Palestinian, and American Women, brought to you by the UCLA YNS Nazarian Center for Israel Studies and co-sponsored by the UCLA Dialogue Across Difference Committee, the UCLA Department of Sociology, and the UCLA Center for Middle East Development. My name is Tamar Kaufman. I am the Israel Institute Fellow at the YNS Nazarian Center for Israel Studies and the Sociology Department, and I will moderate today's event. I am very excited for our event today, especially given the tumultuous times that we are experiencing that are marked by divisive rhetoric and often really detached from the life experiences of the people in Israel and Palestine and really amplified by social media. So I am delighted to host today's guests and the organization they represent to kind of show us a different view that instead of divisiveness may kind of encourage us to think about dialogue and coexistence. Tomorrow's Women is an organization that operates under the profound belief that young women possess the transformative power to affect change. By equipping these young women with the necessary skills in fostering compassionate leadership, Tomorrow's Women aims to cultivate a generation of leaders who champion equality, peace, and justice for all. In our discussion today, we have the honor of hearing from two extraordinary individuals, Noga Bar-Oz, sitting right here, a Jewish Israeli musician, and Lana Ikelan, a Palestinian journalist. Lana Ikelan brings a rich cultural heritage and resilience to her work. She was born in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and raised in East Jerusalem. She offers a first-hand insights into the challenges faced by Palestinians. As a journalist for an American news agency, Lana provides valuable perspectives from the front lines of the conflict. With an internship at the Israeli Ministry of Justice's Foreign Relations Unit and Iklan, Lana offers a newest understanding of the region dynamic. Through her work, she paints a vivid picture of hope amidst adversity, illustrating the enduring spirit of those striving for peace. Originally from Haifa, Israel, Noga Bar-Oz will graduate this spring from Jerusalem Academy of Music and Dance, where her diverse class consists of Jews, Muslims, and Christians. Conducting an orchestra for Jewish and Arab children, Noga fosters unity through music. With three grandparents seeking refuge in Israel after surviving the Holocaust, Noga's connection to Israel and its people runs deep. Until his death, every Passover, her grandfather would read from the Haggadah or Exodus storybook that his father secretly created while in the concentration camp. Noga believes that in these challenging times, it is crucial to share her story and spread her belief in the possibility of peace. Noga and Lana will share with us how, through immersive dialogue and workshops facilitated by Tomorrow's Women, they experience the profound impact of fostering empathy and mutual understanding across cultural divides. Their journey offer a beacon of hope, I hope, for all of us, and provide a glimpse into the potential of a different Israeli-Palestinian reality, one built on empathy and understanding. I want you to ask you to all join me in welcoming Noga and Lana. To help us promote a constructive dialogue that is really so crucial in these very challenging times.
You want to know what I find so exhilarating about being a journalist? This is where you say what?
Yes.
Is that I never know what story the day will bring. On October 2nd, 2023 was my very first day as a journalist working for a news agency. I wrote an article about International Nonviolence Day and honoring Mahatma Gandhi's legacy. My second day on the job, My second day on the job, October 8th. And that was a different kind of story. I wrote an article about journalists on the front line describing the escalating events between Israel and Hamas. I'm not just a proud journalist. I'm a proud Palestinian journalist. And I have a newsworthy story of how I got here. I was born and raised in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, where both my Arab parents owned not a Middle Eastern restaurant, but a Mexican restaurant. Talk about an identity crisis. And when I was 8 years old, they both decided to move back home to Palestine because they wanted their kids to be in closer touch with their roots. And you see, although I call myself an Arab and a Palestinian, I didn't express myself when I moved back home to Jerusalem as an Arab or a Palestinian. I called myself an American, and I didn't even understand what it meant to be a Palestinian. I even had anxiety speaking Arabic. Until one day, my parents, sisters, and I decided to visit my mom's family in the West Bank for the first time since we moved back from the US. And after visiting our grandparents, we were heading back home to Jerusalem, and we stopped at a checkpoint. There, Israeli soldiers requested to see our IDs. And as my mom took out her ID, declaring that she was from the West Bank, the Israeli soldiers spoke to her in Hebrew, demanding to see her papers. Keep in mind, my mother didn't understand a word of Hebrew back then, and she still doesn't today. And she didn't understand that she needed certain papers to cross the checkpoint just because she was from the West Bank. And as I stared at the confusion on her face, I felt my little sister's grip around my hand tighten. That's when the soldier came near her door, clutching on his gun, telling my mom to get out of the car. Immediately, my sisters and I started panicking as we watched our mom get out of the car being escorted by a soldier. My father, sisters, and I rushed to the place where she was being interrogated, and we waited on the streets for hours. And I remembered feeling scared and worried and confused. And my dad was worried too, and he said things like, "I don't know if your mom is coming back home with us because I don't know if she's even allowed to live with us anymore." And that's not easy for an 8-year-old to hear. When she finally walked out of that interrogation room, 8 hours later, the look on her face said it all. It was as if she had seen a ghost. And in that moment, I didn't want to be a Palestinian because it didn't feel safe. A few years later, I came across Camp at Tomorrow's Women, and it was there where I finally started embracing my Palestinian identity. You see, during the first part of camp, we enjoyed bonding activities like art therapy, talking about our lives and culture, and why some men don't deserve the time of day. Typical teenage girl stuff. We completely forgot that we were there to talk to the other side about a conflict going on back home. I forgot that my Israeli roommate, now my good friend Noga, sitting here beside me, was someone I wasn't supposed to like. Then we addressed the elephant in the room, that topic we all dreaded mentioning, but had to, because this camp was about the hard works of making peace. And I remembered surprising myself as I stood there speaking so proudly as a Palestinian about the difficulties we face, the daily indignities, and the appalling casualties. Yes, we fought, we argued, and once we refused to sleep in the same room. But when camp came to an end, none of that really mattered anymore. At that point, we were like a family. I was saying goodbye to the girls who took care of me when I wasn't okay, and I was saying goodbye to the girls who were the closest thing I had to home when I was far away from my actual one. And after returning home, I remembered feeling so much pride as a Palestinian that I finally started speaking Arabic. I started wearing the colors of the Palestinian flag, and I shared stories of Palestine on my social media. I was even comfortable enough with Israelis that I started working at the Israeli Ministry of Justice. And I taught those same Israeli colleagues how to speak Arabic. That brings me to where I am today. A Palestinian journalist who has been covering the war since the day it began. Tomorrow's women gave me the tools to connect with the other side, to deeply listen to their stories and to try to understand them. It made me the strong Palestinian woman that I am today. My parents, however, aren't big fans of my job. I remember they were begging me to quit. Gaza, or Gaza, has become one of the deadliest places for Palestinian journalists since October 7th. And more than 100 Palestinian journalists have been killed so far. But me, I refuse to quit. Because the beauty and the burden of being a journalist is giving a voice to the voiceless. It is speaking our truth, even if it means documenting my people's sorrows in real time. From the rubble of hate and conflict, it is our job to stand our ground and share our stories. And hopefully, we'll end up like where we did at the end of camp for Tomorrow's Women. With compassion, with more forgiveness, and most importantly, with peace. Thank you very much.
This is the name. It's one of the oldest instruments in the world. What I especially love about the name is that it's the main wind instrument in all Middle Eastern cultures, including Turkish, Persian, Arabic, and Jewish. So, here I am now, a 23 years old Jewish woman who lives in Jerusalem, about to graduate Jerusalem Music Academy with a degree in Eastern music. Music is such a huge part of who I am. It is my joy, my solace, my love language. I first picked up the flute when I was 9 years old. That is the same age that my dear grandma Leah was when Nazis invaded the Netherlands and took her and all of her family to a concentration camp. After 4 years being held by the Nazis, they were freed in a prisoner's exchange. But on her way to freedom, her mother passed away. The remaining members of the family found refuge in Israel. 3 of my grandparents are Holocaust survivors. Their stories of survival and the horrors of the Holocaust are a big part of who I am. Every year, on the holiday of Passover, my grandfather used to bring out a yellowish handwritten Haggadah or prayer book, that his father managed to secretly create while he was in a labor camp. He would tell us about his own exodus from the horrors of the Holocaust to freedom, and about the long history of the Jewish people suffering from persecution. For my family, Israel meant freedom. I feel a strong connection to our land, to my Jewish heritage, and I do not take for granted having a safe home for my people. However, I do understand that this security had come with a great cost for the Palestinians. That became painfully clear to me the summer I was 16 years old and attended tomorrow's Women's Summer Camp. It was there that I first met the other side. We exchanged stories, tried each other's food, started speaking in each other's languages, sang and played music together. Remarkably, we became close friends. It is an honor for me to stand here today with my dear friend and camp roommate, Lana. After returning back home from camp, I was inspired and joined an orchestra made up of Arab and Jewish musicians. I learned Arabic and fell in love with Arabic music. Music is a fertile ground for creating connections among people who are different. In my current university class of 15 students, we are a mix of Christian, Muslims, Druze, and Jewish from all different parts of Israel and Palestine. I practice music with my dear Arab friend Noor from the West Bank. Another Palestinian classmate and I play together in a Jewish Hasidic wedding. Just like the experience of being a camper at Tomorrow's Women, I've gotten the chance to play alongside people I never would have otherwise met. I often think of my Holocaust surviving grandparents being at the audience, watching, listening, and smiling. Until October 7, I had the great joy of co-conducting an orchestra made up of Palestinian and Jewish children from across Jerusalem. Jerusalem is a deeply holy and divided place, one of the most disputed and violent in the world. And it was my job to bring diverse children together and create something hopeful and beautiful. We were supposed to start rehearsing on this year on October 8th, but the day before, October 7th, turned into the Black Saturday. That was the day Hamas launched a brutal attack on Israel, murdering, torturing, and kidnapping hundreds of my people. Needless to say, the rehearsals were cancelled until the war ends. Israel is a small country. We all know someone who was a victim of October 7th. It is hard for me to understand all the horrors it were. My sense of safety and well-being at home has been shattered. Immediately after October 7th, I wasn't able to listen to music or even touch the name. To just think that hundreds of young music lovers, just like me, were slaughtered in a music festival where celebrating life was too much pain to bear. One of those who were kidnapped is my dear friend's brother, Aviatar David, a talented guitarist. 1 month after he was kidnapped, his family started holding weekly jam sessions in the center of Tel Aviv as a form of protest until he returns home. I have joined these sessions, and in these hard times, I understand how powerful and healing music is. With all the suffering around me, it often feels like the only thing that makes sense. My orchestra, like Tomorrow's Women, gives me a hope that a different world is possible, that we can bring people together in peace. There is nothing my homeland needs more than its love. Thank you very much.
And I think the first question that comes into mind is, having experienced the camp, having been involved in kind of peace-building efforts, in efforts of mutual understanding, how did October 7th impact you? I know that for many people, and that has been obviously in the news, and we see that definitely in social media. That has really drew them apart. And I'm curious to hear what was the impact for you.
For me personally, the second the war started, I knew I had to cover it. And so I didn't have time to process how I personally feel about it. Obviously in journalism you can't be biased, you have to be completely objective, you have to lay it out as it is. And so I felt basically like I was a robot just trying to get stories down. I didn't really like process what was going on. And it wasn't until like after 2 months where I finally felt it. And I was watching, it wasn't after 2 months, it was after I saw a video of a kid in Gaza like shaking on the bed. And it was like this tiny kid. And I remember breaking down crying. And I was like, okay, this is, I remember feeling really, really sad. And then I was obviously watching the Israeli families out in Tel Aviv, in Jerusalem, protesting, begging for their families to come back home. And I like imagined how difficult it was. And there was also a scene of one of the hostages being dragged by her hair in the truck, and she had blood on her pants. And I remember getting chills down my spine, and I was like, that's awful. So those two images were kind of like what made me feel nothing but sadness, and obviously a lot of anger.
So in the first days, I was just so sad and terrified, and I was crying a lot. And there was, it's this feeling that you cannot know what is going to happen, like really not being safe, and knowing that there's so much people that I know, that I love, that were hurt, because there's very hard. And I also remember that because I have a lot of Palestinian friends, I was terrified to text and see like what's going on, how are you, because I don't know, I felt like I wasn't ready for if the response was not compassionate. And I remember I was speaking with one friend that was with us in camp, which is a Jewish Israeli, and we were both like not wanting to be in social media at all, not to see what everybody's going to post, because it's just too much. And then I had that moment that I just realized that I should cross that barrier and just check on what's going on. And I remember I first texted my good friend from my school, from my university, that lives in Hebron, which is in the West Bank. I wrote her, how are you? How is your family? Are you safe? And then she just sent me so much love and support, and asked about my family and how I was doing. And I felt such a relief in breaking that barrier. And I feel very lucky that I have this, I don't know, it feels like a privilege to have friends from the other side, to have friends, Palestinian friends like Lana, because it gives me the hope that I know I have allies in the other side, and it's hard. It's hard, there's a lot of pain on both sides. But just acknowledging that there is so much pain, and I can choose in a different way, like in this tour, choose to support peace and coexistence, is something that gives me so much hope in this dark days. So it's really a huge gift.
And we have some questions from the audience, and one of them actually pertains exactly to what you were mentioning, Noga. And the question is, Has October 7th and the Gaza war that unfolded afterward changed your views on the hopes of peace or coexistence?
In the beginning, yes, it did. At that point, I was like, yeah, that's never gonna happen. And at some moments, and at some points, it still feels like that. But then I remember my friendships with people that I have at work, or that I have at university, or that friendship that I have here right now. And I'm like, well, it's not that far from happening. It's gonna be difficult, yes, but it's possible.
We have a song in Hebrew that says that it's the most dark before the dawn is up. And I think this is something that is with me, like going with me in my mind. I know it's very dark now, but from this darkness we hope to increase the light and to bring more peace to the world.
Another question is, I think really pertains to the personal level, and as you both shared with us, this moment contains so much pain for both sides. And one question is, how do you contain each other's pain?
I think it's what camp actually taught us, which was compassionate listening. And I think we lack that a lot nowadays. And one thing that Noga and I are really grateful for in camp, and the one thing that over 400 alumni will tell you, is that compassionate listening was the greatest thing that we took in camp, which was sitting there and listening to someone to understand, not to retaliate. So you would sit there and you sit here and we listen. And we listen because we know that they're in pain. And we don't sit there and we give advice or we give them our opinion. You just sit there and you listen. And they do the same thing, vice versa. And it helps a lot, and I think that's kind of how we contain each other's pain.
And have you noticed that your relationship with either your Palestinian or Israeli friends have changed after these events?
My simple answer is no.
No.
Well, I think the conversations maybe changed because like we're really suffering and going through so much. But I guess like none of my relationships were hurt from this.
I received a question about can you tell us about the Jewish-Palestinian orchestra? What kind of relationships are created in this orchestra? Any musical projects are created outside of the orchestra? What kind of music do you play? So if you can tell us a little bit more about the orchestra.
So the orchestra is made is from Palestinians who lives in East Jerusalem and Jewish Israelis that lives in West Jerusalem. And an interesting thing is that both children do not speak the same, they don't have a common language. Palestinians would speak Arabic but cannot speak Hebrew, and Jewish Israelis speak Hebrew and do not speak Arabic. And they both don't really speak English. So the only language that they do have in common is music, which is just amazing. Also, for my experience with playing with so much people, diverse people that we don't share the same language, music can create an amazing connection, like an amazing harmony that you're listening and creating your own sound, and it just creates this amazing harmony that is very spiritual and for me. And this is what I hope for these children to achieve, this great experience of listening. And also an interesting thing is that I can tell you about is the concert that we had this last year. At the end of the year, we had a great concert, and both parents came, like the Palestinians and the Jewish parents came. And I think this is another circle of how this is amazing, because these parents are not used to sit in the same hall, and just to see their children in the same ensemble playing together, I think broke a lot of stereotypes also. So it's really amazing. And a lot of my musical programs are like my projects are like multicultural, where I play a lot with the Palestinians, and this is really something special that we have. Like it's a great gift that we have in Israel, that it's so diverse. And we play Arabic music and just Eastern music.
Thank you. And another question is actually for you, Lana. How does one become a journalist and a reporter? And if you can tell more about your story of how you became.
So my story of becoming a journalist is kind of funny. I was almost done with my student position in journalism, my student position in the Israeli Ministry of Justice. I was social media and content creator there. So basically I was desperate to find any other job before my position finishes. And I was like, anything, literally anything. And then I got invited to an interview, and I didn't know what the interview was for, and I literally just walk in and I find out it's a news agency. I'm like, oh, okay. So she interviews me, and she tells me that we'd like you to try out our internship. And keep in mind, I studied journalism and mass communications and international relations at the university. So, and with the experience that I had in the ministry, she kind of knew that I had a basic background with what I was doing and how things are kind of formed. When in reality, I didn't know anything. She was like, so what do you know about journalism? I'm like, everything. I don't know. Whatever you need, I got it. She's like, oh, great, so you can write your first piece. I'm like, wait, let's go to back. Okay, back to these steps. But after time and time again, I eventually started writing, and it was a great experience up until the war. Obviously, things shifted, and obviously the topics became a little bit too heavy for me. I'm quite a sensitive person, so having to be a journalist, you need to be quite emotionless. And my boss kept telling me, you're too emotional. I'm like, yeah, it's war. What do you expect? And so to be a journalist, I think you gotta be strong-hearted. I think you really need to be someone who wants to seek the truth and share it as it is, and really stay objective. So in Arabic we say journalism is مهنة المتاعب, which means it's the career of the one who is most exhausted, because they're always on the go of knowing what's next. So yeah, if you got the energy for that, go for it.
I have a question here about actually kind of the process that led you to Tomorrow's Women. And somebody has been asking how or why did your parents, of course you were teenagers at the time, allow you to join Tomorrow's Women? Or first of all, maybe what drove you to want to go, and what were the conversations with your parents?
So for my parents, it was very simple. I told them there is a program that I really want to join. It's in the U.S. And it's about peace building, and my parents thought it would be a great idea for me to interact with Israelis before I enter university, before I enter the real world, and so you're like, this is a great opportunity for you to meet the other side, get to know them pretty well. And I thought that was amazing, and I was really excited, and I was excited to go to Walmart again. So there were all these advantages, you know? And so yeah, that's I'm not gonna lie.
This is why you came here today, also to the tour.
Not haven't gone, but like soon to. I was really excited to meet these amazing women. Of course, I was scared that they weren't gonna like me. I was wrong, and it was just a lot of fun. It was a great experience.
Well, my parents also were very supportive for me to join this program. I think what really drove me to sign in is that, as Lana was explaining, it was a great opportunity for me to meet Palestinians and to know more about the conflict and get new perspectives and open my mind. And I'm really grateful for this opportunity. And also for now, for this tour, they're very proud of me being here and speaking to you and spreading the words of peace.
Lana, I have a personal question. You studied in the Hebrew University, right?
Yeah.
Why did you choose to study at the Hebrew University, which is an Israeli university in Jerusalem?
So I didn't choose, my parents forced me. Let's start there. I didn't want to go to Hebrew University. I actually wanted to go to LSU. Like, I want to go back to Louisiana. I've had enough. But they were like, no, our daughter's not going to leave at the age of 18 to university. We don't trust you. And I was like, fair game, fair game. So I did end up going to Hebrew University, and also I do not regret it. Hebrew University has taught me so much. I'm not gonna lie, there are difficult moments in terms of like Israeli-Palestinian, especially during like the May 2021 war. It was pretty active. Right now, Hebrew University there are tensions between Palestinians and Israelis. You can see it, you can feel it in the classrooms. You know, each one is kind of on their each one's on the side. But studying there was difficult because everything was in Hebrew, and they would be like, it's okay for the Arab students, we have Arabic translators, and I'm like, that doesn't work for me either, I need English. And so I would have to translate everything in English myself. So it was really difficult, but eventually I got the hang of it, and it was an okay 4 years of my life.
Some peace organizations point that so long as there is power asymmetries between Israelis and Palestinians, power imbalance, that's better. Yeah, then really any kind of effort to move towards peace is going to be fruitful. It's not going to work out unless you really address those issues. And the question is, do you agree with that statement? Yes or no? And maybe we can kind of rephrase it, and has your experience with Tomorrow with Women enlightened you to kind of think about through this question?
Well, I think one of the most important things that happen in this program is that we are able to just meet one another as a human being and not with all the title of, Palestinian and stereotypes. And this is something that I find in my personal daily life living in this region crucial, because as a Jewish Israeli, when I grew up, I didn't have a lot of opportunities to meet Palestinians and be friends with them. The only opportunities to hear Arabic maybe was in the news, and that wasn't in a good context. And there is a lot of issues in our area and a lot of things that are very difficult. And I think we can agree on both sides. And I feel that for daily life, for surviving and, having better experience living in Jerusalem and in Israel, Palestine, having us being able to meet and just being friends and knowing the humanitarian, like you're humanized each other. It's so crucial in what I see. And I think also developing leadership in women is something amazing. That this organization is just for women. So this would be my response.
Yeah. And I think that this is part of also why I thought it would be so important to have you come here, because I think we don't have enough of coming together, of thinking about coexistence. Our current discourse is so inflammatory in trying to really separate the groups, and I think that what you're doing, your efforts, are so important to bring us on a path forward, as both these people are really, nobody's going to leave. Both these people share this land, and they have to coexist side by side. Our last question that we received from the audience is, how can we in America help? What can we do? I'd like to help in any way.
I know this is gonna sound hard, but stop choosing a side. We are so quick to choose a side, and we are so quick to let our anger get a hold of us. And I think that's the problem. And as much as we, show sympathy with one side, there's no shame in showing sympathy with another side. There's pain, and nothing about this war on either side is just. Nothing, none of it. And so, with that being said, instead of saying, I choose this side, I choose that side, no, this is right, this is wrong, choose humanity. It's really just that simple.
I think Lana just nailed it.
So much.
Yeah.